Imagine coming out at the age of 4, raising yourself on the streets of New York at 10, and caring for dozens of transgender youth by 18. Imagine starting an organization meant to keep transgender youth off the streets while you were still a child yourself. Imagine being a part of the Stonewall riots and subsequently working with both the Gay Activist Alliance and the Gay Liberation Front, two of the strongest gay rights organizations of the 70s, to advocate for yourself and your friends, all before turning 25. Imagine you are Sylvia Rivera. Sylvia Rivera was a transgender, prominent LGBT rights activist in the infancy of the gay rights movement. In 1970, at the age of 19, Sylvia co-founded the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, or STAR, and opened a shelter for transgender youth. STAR worked to educate trans youth and provide shelter and a safe haven for those who had been cast out by their families and society. Sylvia's tireless activism and willingness to speak out against discrimination on behalf of the trans community inspired and empowered others to speak out on behalf of gay and trans rights, and inspired many to continue the fight for the next generation. Being LGBT in the 60s and 70s was not only hard, it was dangerous. Society taught that gay and transgender people were broken and their very being was immoral or against many religious beliefs. Most heterosexual people didn't understand the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity. Police officers would target known gay bars and arrest patrons. On top of being harassed in bars, many trans people were forced to live on the streets and work as prostitutes because they weren't allowed to buy or rent a home and other professions refused to employ them. Sylvia was born Ray Rivera and was raised by her grandmother after her mother committed suicide. Sylvia started wearing makeup and dressing as a girl at a young age. Her grandmother would scold her and tell her she was not going to wear those clothes and she was going to act like a boy. She disagreed. Sylvia left home at the age of 10 because her grandmother was harassed at work and other women were calling Sylvia names. Even so, when she would end up in jail after a bar raid or police harassment, her grandmother always bailed her out. She told Sylvia she was her grandchild and she would always be there. Despite this, Sylvia always ended up back in the streets. While on the streets, she met a group of drag queens who took her in and gave her the name Sylvia. She and the queens sometimes had hotel rooms if there was enough money, but they usually lived in abandoned buildings and parks.
When we have a windstorm, does it
Oh, it holds up
holds
very
up.
well. Right here, you can film in here. John is sleeping.
Okay.
You can go and film. It's, very decor, We have it filmed cute, We have it dressed up.
For the most part, they worked as prostitutes to get money. Although they had the skills to work in the retail or food industry, few businesses would employ them because they were unapologetically transgender and took pride in their identity. One of the mothers of the group was Marsha P. Johnson. She was 6 years older than Sylvia, but they had similar interests and were working towards the same goal, to get transgender women off the streets and into stable living situations. They had similar life experiences, running away from home at a young age and experiencing homelessness from there on. They wanted to make sure that no one else had to live through that. Their group often went to a gay bar called Stonewall Inn. Because it was a known gay bar run by the mafia, the city tried multiple times to revoke their liquor license. The Stonewall Inn continued operating and illegally selling alcohol to patrons, including minors like Sylvia. On June 28, 1969, while Sylvia and Marsha were there, the New York police raided Stonewall, arresting many of the employees and patrons. Although this was a routine occurrence, this time the people at the bar didn't run away, and as the crowd of onlookers grew, they began to retaliate. It has been said that Sylvia was the first person to throw a bottle at the police officers. Regardless, people threw coins from their pockets as well as the cash register and found more empty bottles in the back to launch at the police officers. The incident attracted 400 protesters that night. The next night, there were 1,000. The protesters were relentless as the police were forced into scattering them night after night. This incident was instrumental in launching Sylvia's career in activism. After the protests at Stonewall, Sylvia Rivera and Marsha Johnson realized the needs of trans youth were not being prioritized by other gay activist groups. To address this, they founded an organization called the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, STAR, in 1970. STAR's mission was twofold: to listen to the needs of the trans community and fight for their rights while also educating the kids, as they called them, so they would have the skills they needed for future employment. Marsha and Sylvia found a building at 213 2nd Avenue and paid the rent by doing sex work at night. The building was important to them as it was a real shelter, making STAR feel more like an official organization. STAR House was the first LGBT youth shelter in North America. It was also the first trans and women of color-led organization in the USA. While it was the only house in New York, People in other states started similar organizations based on the tenets of STAR. Unfortunately, STAR suffered early financial troubles, and within 2 years, inefficient budgeting resulted in STAR being evicted from the building. In true Sylvia Rivera fashion, they evacuated the building, but now without throwing the refrigerator out the window. Although the STAR House only lasted 2 years, over 100 women were given shelter from the streets of New York by the organization. Other locations popped up around the country as well, increasing the number of women taken in off the streets. Many of the women in the house were taught how to read and write and how to take care of themselves from the many dangers of prostitution, including how to physically defend themselves. Most kids didn't have much when they arrived. STAR provided clothing or food. The organization provided a place where basic needs could be met and a community built. STAR became the home base for the trans rights movement.
This is our community.
Right.
This is our little house.
I know now if I ever get hungry that Sister Sylvia will take care of me.
Honey, I will come.
I
you
know
will come
she's
here
good
and
people. She's good people, and she'd take care of those that need it.
Sylvia's activism wasn't limited to LGBT rights. She was also recruited by the Young Lords Party, an organization of Puerto Rican youth, to work with them organizing for equal rights. She explained in an interview in 1998 that anytime they needed help, she would always be there for the Young Lords. They respected her and the rest of Star House, so she respected them. She also became an associate of the Black Panther Party leader Huey Newton in 1971. He told her that the work they were doing with Star was revolutionary. The support and respect these two organizations showed Star motivated Sylvia to work with both groups in the pursuit of their missions too. After the Star House closed in 1972, Sylvia and Marcia continued to protest and fight for trans rights, first together, but eventually they parted ways to work on their own. In 1992, Marcia was found dead in the Hudson River, an all-too-common event for a transgender woman, especially those who were African American. Her death was ruled a suicide, but the case was reopened by the NYPD in 2012 and was assigned an officer to look more closely at the case. So far, there have been no known advancements.
And Marcia said, "You're not crossing that River Jordan without me. Me and you and I will cross it together." And when she died, part of me went with her because one of our pacts was that we would always cross River Jordan together. And to me, this is the River Jordan, the Hudson River. And what I did in May to jump in the river in Yonkers and whatnot was that I was really at my wit's end. And
Sylvia continued fighting for trans rights until her death. She struggled with drug and alcohol addiction for the majority of her life, and she died of liver cancer in 2002. The year before her death, she tried to reopen a new Star House, but it never took off. Sylvia's 50 years of activism inspired a new generation of activists. In August of 2002, attorney and transgender civil rights activist Dean Spade started an organization called the Sylvia Rivera Law Project. Their mission is to guarantee that all people are free to self-determine their gender identity and expression regardless of income or race and without facing harassment, discrimination, or violence. The collective states, "We believe that in order to create meaningful political participation and leadership, we must have access to basic means of survival and safety from violence." The Sylvia Rivera Law Project provides free healthcare for low-income transgender, intersex, and gender non-conforming people. They also want transgender people to be able to feel free as themselves. Sylvia Rivera dedicated her life to taking a stand against prejudice and discrimination. Using the Stonewall riot as a springboard, she worked tirelessly to achieve equal rights and treatment for not only the LGBT community, but for other marginalized communities as well. Her contributions to the fight for trans rights inspired another generation of activists to take up the fight. Although the battle has not been won, Sylvia Rivera set the groundwork for today's civil rights warriors.
The people are trying to do something for all of us and not men and women that belong to a white middle class, white club, and that's what you all belong to. Revolution now! Give me a G! Give me an A! Give me a Y! Give me a P!